Thank you all for coming to our webinar about transferring of big data in natural resources and including oil and gas. If you have any questions during my webinar, feel free to enter them into the GoToWebinar box, and I will get to your questions at the end of my presentation, and I will touch those questions later. So my name is John Tkachevsky. I am the president and co-founder of FileCatalyst. We have a blog at filecatalyst.com/blog where we post a lot of interesting articles about technology related to data transmission. I do webinars. I've been doing them for almost over 2 years now. There is a big library of my previous webinars that are grouped by product, use case, industry. So if you're interested in something specific, feel free to go to our website under webinars, resources, webinars, and you'll find all the more information there. So just to give you a quick background of what FileCatalyst is, it's a UDP file transfer protocol that has a built-in retransmission of errors and a congestion control. Our algorithm has been patented. The US and Canada has been built ground up by us here in our R&D office in Ottawa, Canada. We can reach transfer rates up to 10 gigabits and even beyond with encryption on commodity hardware. We're not affected by latency, and when it comes to packet loss, our speed degrades linearly, meaning that if you have 5% packet loss, you'll get a 5% loss on your speed, and not like with TCP applications where extra percent of packet loss, your speed drops quite substantially. We've been built to work on multi-core architecture and multi-nodes to really support those that are using FileCatalyst to transfer data sets to supercomputing centers. We also have integration with cloud storage provider object stores like Amazon S3, Azure, Blob, OpenStack, Wasabi, and many more. If you need to move data for backups or archival, or you're using the cloud infrastructure for your computational needs. So the main use cases in natural resources and exploration of oil and gas is for uploading the data that you've collected. Second one is for high performance computing. Then there's also for sharing the data and collaboration of stakeholders, and then also do backup and disaster recovery of the data around the world. Most of natural resources exploration is done all around the world, and not necessarily the data is not processed necessarily or was collected. And this accelerated wide area network file transfer solution as FileCatalyst is ideal for accelerating and making the whole file transfer process easier. So let's look at some of the use cases more in detail. So if you're working with digital oil fields, for example, where you're drilling, yes, you're drilling for oil, but at the same time, you're collecting a lot of data through Internet of Things. And this is where not necessarily oil fields don't necessarily have access to good computing speed, and also doesn't mean that scientists and researchers that need this data are not always on site. They are usually located in some large urban centers and need that data as quickly as possible. So some of the data that our customers send with our software would be, logging while drilling or measurements while drilling, hole size and shape, structure analysis, acoustic scanning, reservoir simulation, seismic analysis, fluid dynamics. In the case if there is construction required, there could be also a lot of engineering and construction plans that need to be sent around the world. And also there's R&D and manufacturing of products required for extraction of oil. The other big use case in this space is for marine exploration. So as the ship passes looking at what's under the sea, and this creates a lot of data as well that needs to be sent back. So in this case, data usually is collected from hydrophones. It's a lot of big audio files. It has to be sent over long distances. Usually supercomputing facilities are not available on the ship. They are usually in some big facilities, big data centers in large cities far away. There is the collaboration on the big data sets you collected at sea. and data flows through really multiple paths. It could be something as a satellite connection to LTE, it could be fiber, microwave, and all these links are not necessarily ideal for moving large data, and this is where FileCatalyst comes in and can help you with this. Another big part is the data usually has to be centrally managed. So you've paid a lot of money to collect this data, and you want to make sure that you only have access to it, and only people that you want to have access to it. So this is where the management of data in the system is usually based in a central location. And as usual with anything that is done with supercomputing at this size, it's usually runs on Linux. So we have some deep integration with Linux that allows you to run FileCatalyst service file transfer as it would be part of a Linux install, and that helps you out. So with this is only a partial customer list, but as I said, we had some customers in drilling, in oil exploration, in mining, in gas, in electricity, both hydro and of course we have a number of manufacturers in this space like GE, for example, that manufactures a lot of this equipment and integrates our software. How does this work? So if you look at the file transfers, everything today on the internet flows through TCP, and TCP was built in the 70s. It's a great protocol. Everything works on TCP based on the internet today. You wouldn't be able to browse web pages, receive emails. You would not be able to send files with protocols like FTP. The problem with TCP, it's a very linear process. So as you can see here, the source file is being sent, is being broken into small data packets, and as each packet arrives, an acknowledgement is sent back to the sender to tell the sender to send another chunk of data. And because this process is very linear, the bandwidth is never optimized, and the more latency and more packet loss you have, the bigger the effects of this. So as soon as you have any kind of long haul transfer or satellite or wireless, TCP starts to slow down. And there's a number of like wide area network accelerators that you could use, but something software based like FileCatalyst is much more flexible, as there's no hardware required. It all is built into the application and can work much more seamlessly. This graph kind of gives you an idea where TCP performance drops. So as you can see, the bandwidth here is 100 megabits, and as the latency of the transfer goes, so RTT is the round trip time of the packets, you can see that the TCP performance drops, while FileCatalyst will maintain a steady line regardless of how far you're sending the data sets. This is sort of the gives you the idea of the sweet spot is, as soon as you have a latency of X milliseconds of I'll give you an example in a minute of how the acceleration works on the long haul networks. But with FileCatalyst, what's happening? So you can see here that there's multiple packets of data going all at once, and this creates a lot more traffic on the pipe, but that's the idea, is to maximize the pipe and to send as much data as possible you can with your existing infrastructure. We're not affected by latency. We do have a congestion control algorithm that checks for the background TCP traffic and allows it to go, and you can tune it. You can say, okay, FileCatalyst, take up all the speed, or take up most of the pipe, allow TCP traffic go through, but albeit a bit slower, but you can. Or you can just tell FileCatalyst to auto detect, and it will then instantly detect the link capacity and the background traffic and send as much data as possible. The big advantage here is predictable results. Whether you're sending data from a ship somewhere at sea to a location in Europe, you can easily do that with FileCatalyst and always get a predictable results. You also, because we have verification and MD5 checksums, you know that all the data sent always arrives intact and always will work. So this gives you the ability to predict your transfers, guarantee that the files arrive, and gives you all the management tools to move this data quickly, efficiently, and securely over those networks. So we have a little bandwidth calculator here that we've created on our website. If you go to our website, FileCatalyst.com, and you go to Resources, Bandwidth Calculator, we've built this little calculator here to give you an idea of what things look like. So let's go, we'll just pick here sort of a use case between Vancouver and London, and we're going to do here 100 megabit link. Once you click on this, you can see that FileCatalyst transfer speed is a minute 27 seconds. With TCP-based transfer, it would take 40 minutes for the same 1 gig file. So the increase in speed is substantial. The further the two network nodes, the better the performance of, you'll see a better performance. So if I, for example, make the long haul distance network a bit smaller, so let's say I'll go to New York to London, you can now see that it's only 13 times faster. So, but you can see still it's a considerable improvement in speed and bandwidth saturation. Things get much more interesting also once you go over satellite vessel. So if I pick the satellite vessel to New York, and I'll drop the speed here to, let's say, 20 megabits, you can see that the speed now is 24 times faster because it's 20 megabit link. And really, the calculations used here is the delay, 638 millisecond delay for a satellite connectivity. So it's the round trip time of the packet to arrive from one place to another. And another thing that is one thing that is calculated here for you is the packet loss. So average packet loss on the internet, I think, is 0.6%, and that's what I think we put on our calculations. Of course, once you go into satellite microwave links, that drastically increases and gives you a different speed. So feel free to try this calculator. You have lots of options here, and to see the difference performance within the speed. So FileCatalyst offers, we have a product portfolio. We have 3 products that help with file transfers. We have the FileCatalyst Direct product, Central, and Workflow. Today's presentation is going to be concentrating predominantly on Direct and Central. We're not going to touch much on Workflow, but I'll just give you a quick review here of what product is. So Direct is our main core product. This is our core technology for transferring files. The deployment of FileCatalyst servers usually in your central location where you wish your data to be centrally managed and reside. And then you have some kind of an internet connectivity. Once again, it just has to be an IP link. And then you have different client applications that can connect and either push the data to your storage or pull the data from the storage. All these client applications are bidirectional, so you can do uploads and downloads. So what do we have here? We have a hot folder for automated tasks, for folder synchronization, for scheduling tasks. So hot folder can wake up at 1 a.m., check for new file sets, and push them to your FileCatalyst server. Or vice versa. It could be waking up at 3 a.m., checking for new files here and pulling them down. And then you can control all the other aspects of the transfer, like how much bandwidth, what file sets, filtering, and all that stuff. I'll get into that during my demo. Desktop app is pretty much like a FileZilla app. It's a 2 panes. You have a left pane that shows you your local files, and the right pane shows you the remote files, and then you just drag and drop files between them. Pretty much similar like FileZilla or Fetch or many other FTP clients out there. Browser-based, the browser integration, it gives the end user ability to upload files directly to FileCatalyst Direct server to a specific folder, or also to initiate links. And that's the ability to send email links to recipients. So recipient just clicks on the link, gets brought to a download page where the files that are uploaded to them are available for them to pick up and download. Mobile, if you go to Google Play or iTunes, you'll find our application, and you can install it on your mobile device, and you're off to the races to transfer data from mobile device. SDK is everything that is automated. So everything that is API or like no end user intervention type of thing. So here you have our command line tool, You have our Java API, our C++, .NET, REST. All of that is kind of bundled with the SDK, and then you can initiate calls through an API. Of course, most popular these days is doing REST, but we do have C++ and Java if that's required. Central is our visibility layer or management layer of the product. So imagine now you have a FileCatalyst server deployed in your central office. You might have 15, 20 different watch folders from coming in from around the world, from different drilling sites. And now you need to have a visibility and reporting and management layer. So you log into Central, and then you can see your nodes, you can see existing transfers, reports, raise alarms if something doesn't work. So that's all built into Central. As well, it allows you to connect to any of the node and change configuration on the fly without needing to have remote desktop access or without having necessarily access to the box. Workflow, this is the product I'm not going to talk too much for in this space, but Workflow is a web portal. Imagine it's a web-based file transfer portal where you can combine files with metadata, or like you can prompt the user to enter certain information before they start an upload. They could be specifying due dates, they could be selecting drop downs, or they could be doing checkboxes, and depending on the selection from that form, the files will land in exactly the location you need on the server that you need for that specific process. There's also a whole feedback notification process to the submitter. So if someone submits 4 files and describes them, then they can be kept in the loop when these files are processed and created. The other part is that the workflow can also send email links. You get some much more advanced features here with than FileCatalyst link and direct, where you can password protect the downloads. You can have two-factor authentication for the downloads via links, and gives you more customized options for these transfers. Last option in workflow, it allows you to create web folders, sharing of web folders, which can be connected also to hot folder or API, and then users can share data sets and upload and download with a full history. So this is more of a web portal with automation. I will not be doing a demo of this today, but I'm sure there's other webinars. If you go to our website, you can download a webinar for a workflow if you're interested in this piece. Finally, the big change to in ITD over the last several years was ability to create object stores and storing data for either archival processing, or if you're buying an additional computing power on the cloud, then everything is going to be dropped into an object store. We integrate with Azure, Backblaze, Wasabi, S3, Google platform. So if you need to move data to a cloud storage, this is object store. This is where this will be very useful. We also work with a number of private cloud solution providers like Caringo, Cloudian, SwiftStack, where you want to create your own S3, private S3 object store and send data there for archival or processing. So FileCatalyst direct server can integrate with all these platforms. Let's do a demo here of. So I'm going to be showing you the FileCatalyst direct demo. I'm going to be talking about the server piece here. So this is the server piece that you can create your users. You can create your users, and you can transfer files. Once that user is created, they can either upload or download files to the server. So some of the features here you might be interested in is you have the ability to create SFTP keys. You have ability to lock accounts or create an accounts that are temporary, like work only for 3-4 days and then stop working. And also you have the forced file ownership on files on both Windows and Linux. So when the user uploads these files, the files will land as a specific user on the system. This is very useful in supercomputing applications where you need to track where the content came from and who was the owner or the originator. Some other thing you can define which user can upload or download or modify files. You have also the ability to create users and groups. So what that means is that, for example, you have 4 users that need to share same data set. Well, you could point them all to the same home directory, which is complicated. Or what you can create is you can go to our virtual folder list and make a number of these virtual folders or even files, and this is a completely different path on the system. And then all these users, you can decide which user can upload, download to that directory, and delete files and so on. So this is really good for sharing or collaboration on big data sets for multiple users. You can create as many of these virtual folders and assign them to specific users. You can group these folders into a group. So let's say you could have an R&D group. So as soon as a user is created, you assign them to R&D group, and they get right away access to all the R&D collaboration folders. Another thing for user management on the direct server is that you can authenticate against Ldap and Active Directory. So you can manage centrally your users. If you need to remove users, you work through your Active Directory or Ldap interface to manage who gets access to FileCatalyst server. FileCatalyst server is also acts as an FTP server, SFTP server, and FTPS server. So for those that end users that cannot, for example, install our software, they can still use tools like FileZilla or their existing FTP API to upload files. There will be no acceleration, but they'll have access to the entire workflow, including the reporting, the management of users, the virtual folders, and all that stuff is still created for them. So this is something that is also built into the server. For security, everything is secured of AES and SSL. We have as well IP filtering, where you can whitelist or blacklist the IPs for more secure information. You have remote administration of the server, so if you want to the server is installed far and you need to log in and make changes, you can. Last feature I wanted to talk about direct is that there is the link feature here. So this allows you to select certain files on the server and share those files via email with somebody else. And link allows you to, bundle a whole bunch of files together, give it a link ID over here, and then email this link ID to a user so the user can pick up these files. So the way you get to this interface is that this is your link interface. You can see all the transactions that have been sent. But if you want to get to the interface, you just click on HTTP settings here, and you go to the web root of FileCatalyst. So each FileCatalyst server comes with a web root or web server already built in that has many applications already deployed on it that are ready for you to use. So when you click on the web root, you can go to manage or transfer files. In this case, I'm going to go to transfer files. And here you have different applications that are built into the web to the FileCatalyst server to transfer files over the web. One of them is right here. It's called link. So if I click on email link, this launches the link interface. As you can see, it launches the requires FileCatalyst transfer agent, which you can just see here. It blinked very quickly, and now the user is ready to send files. The reason I wasn't prompted for install is that right before I started the demo, I already logged in. So normally you would get prompted for username and password, but because I'm already logged in, this little key here remembers my credentials, so I just get in right away to the right place. So at this moment, all I have to do is enter my recipient, enter my subject, and here are some files. I can specify whether I want to have expiry of this package. So do I want to have Single use, that means as soon as the recipient has downloaded the files, the link is inactive. I can have default date, so this is the dates recommended by the system, or I can put a custom date that has to be before the default date. And this is once again the admin decides what expiry dates to set. Single use is limited to only one recipient, but default date will work for multiple recipients. So here I entered my recipient, I put my subject message, when the link expires, and now I can go here and browse and select files to upload. So let's say I'll go to a directory here, select a couple of my files, and you can see files right away start uploading, and I hit send. So this is really what's happening on the link side. So now you're uploading the files to the server. The server will store them in a specific folder called FC Outbox, and this link gets generated and emailed. So let me show you how this looks. So let me just show you how this looks on the. Let me just close this here. There we go. Let me show you how this looks on the email side, and then you can see on the recipient. So now we're going to flip hats here, and now we're going to become the recipient of these files. So here's that message that came in, and you can see here's the email. So this email, once again, what you can control here as the administrator is the logo, really. So this logo here, you can upload your own company logo. This logo will also appear on the web interface when the user clicks on the link to download the files. So if I click over here, I get, so the same logo here will appear as in the email, and now I'm the recipient. So as the recipient, what can I do here? Well, as the recipient, I can select which file I want to download. I can add them to my download queue, and I can click on download selected files. Or I can click on download all, and then it downloads everything. So this is downloading all the files, and now my transmission is complete. So the application gives you here a little open download location, which will make your Windows Explorer, or on Mac your Windows Finder, and you can see they just end up in downloads, the files that were sent. If the end user chooses to change the target directory where the files are to be saved, they can do this in the transfer agent, and they can go to open the transfer agent configuration, and they can change here the download path. So the download path automatically will go to downloads like all the applications, but you can overwrite that and change it to point it to another place if you want to save the files in some other location. So this is really the link side of things. I'm now gonna switch and talk to you about the hot folder application here. So this hot folder application is the automated client that allows to transfer push data or pull data from the server. So, on the server side, I just mentioned here you can do local paths or you can do UNC paths. So you can do paths like // server share name, server name, share name, and create home directories or virtual files or folders on Samba shares, for example. So let's switch now to hot folder. The hot folder application is you can create a site. The site will allow you to, there will be a FileCatalyst server. You can create your folder. So now here I have two. I have one for uploads, one for downloads, and then I create a task in my scheduler. So here I already have an upload task. I can decide which site, which hot folder, decide the direction, and then you can set the schedule. So is it going to run once a day, every hour, every minute? You can configure this. You have also the ability to do always on with file system events. If you enable this, then then hot folder will register with file system events. And if you, let's say, have a directory of 5 million files, we don't have to traverse it to figure out what to transfer. We'll just listen to the changes of the file system events. So this is good for backup or archival. For connection, you can do You can specify the aggression, so how much you want us to push FileCatalyst server. You want to push away the TCP traffic. So the goal is to always make TCP traffic slower, but still allow it through. And this is what this congestion control does. We have two types of congestion control. One is RTT, one is loss-based. And RTT is ideal for wireless connectivity, so like LTE satellite. So if you're transferring files from a vessel, you probably want to do it RTT-based. Otherwise, you can do it loss-based for landlines. Transfer, you can do an MD5 checksum. So after a transfer, we'll do an MD5 verification. You can force, again, file ownership on the system. So once you're downloading, let's say you want to have a specific user owning the files after they land, you can do that. And you can also do a multi-client. So multi-client is ability to have multiple worker connections. So let's say you have a folder of 100 files. You set this to, let's say, 2. So it'll be 2 files in flight at any given time. This further optimizes the transfers. It gets things going faster. Instead of doing one at a time, you can enable this. The nice part is that this allows you to also rescan for files while the task is running. So let's say you have a task set up to run once a day, and while the transfer is going, there's another file dropped. The multi-client will detect that new file and transfer it, and not leave it for the next scheduled transfer. So we can prioritize transfers. We have ability to do rsync or deltas. We call this file deltas, where if you transfer version 1 of a file, and then there's a version 2 that instead of resending the entire file, you can compute the difference and transfer just the difference for the next version of the file. You have compression built in. Once again, the compression is only zip or LMZA. That compression is really good for log files, SQL files, databases. It doesn't work very well for already compressed files like video or existing zip or gzip files. So you have exclude here. You can exclude those compressed files and include it into include only the extensions that are good for compression. Another nice part is here you have something called single archive. So let's say if you want to move 1,000 smaller files, like I don't know, 1 meg files, you can lump it into an archive and transfer that archive and then automatically unzip it. So the process of zipping, unzipping, and bundling is all behind the scenes. You will just see a file transfer going. And sometimes we call this zip chunking, sometimes it's called single archive transfers, but this is really useful for those cases where you're sending, let's say, hundreds or millions of small files and you want to zip chunk it together. Dynamic, this allows you to send growing files. This works really good for video. When you have a video file that is growing, we can chase kind of the end of the file and transfer it as it arrives on the disk. So this gives you that ability. File sets. So keep in mind that here I'm only have one task, but you could have a lot of tasks. You could have task for small files, a task for big files, a task for files ending with specific extension or specific file name. So you can specify here exactly the file sets you need to send, and you have also the synchronization option. So if you want to do a replication, wide area network file replication, you can enable these settings. And post tasks, well, that will be, you can move files to a folder, do nothing, delete the files. You could call a URL to, let's say, update if you have a CRM that needs to be updated like Salesforce, to tell it that, oh yeah, I finished this transfer. All of this integration is built in, as well as you have email alerts. So that's pretty much the hot folder and the server, just in a quick nutshell. Wanted to go through Central. So if I log in here to Central, so imagine this is a visibility management layer on top of FileCatalyst direct server. So in this case here, I have my FileCatalyst server. I have my 2 nodes created, and I can see exactly what's transferring and when, and I can pull reports from specific transfers, as well as see any alerts. Like here I have, for example, an alert, shows you that if there's a problem. You can load up multiple maps and you can make these layouts yourself. So for example, here's one, but here I also made this one. Different background. So I put the same nodes, but you have multiple nodes. You could have hundreds or even hundreds of nodes defined here, and then you decide which node goes which map, and you can have multiple of these map objects. So it's very easy as you're doing operations. You need to figure out what went wrong and where. You can very easily see it visually here. I'm gonna just go to my hot folder, and I'm gonna start a transfer. So once I start a transfer here in the hot folder, you can actually see what's being transferred, which file. It will give me the ETA for the whole transfer. So this one is, for example, 17 minutes. And now in Central here, this link lights up and shows me what's being transferred on this link. I can go to transfers here and see also current transfers. And I can see this. If I want to go to history, I can search for files, that end, for example, in PDF, and will show me all the PDF transmissions. The reporting, you can set up reporting for the entire system or specific nodes. You can also group the nodes together. So when you edit the map here, I could group, for example, I'll edit this map here. I can group the map together. So I can add an organizer here, clients, add organizers, and now I can group these two together. So now I can have a specific report just for the client's part and not the server part. That will show me this. So now I can, if I want to do a report by selection, I can select the organizer, and that will show me just the transfer for that one piece of data. Last thing in Central you can do is you can do remote administration of nodes. So for example, if I need to administer the server sitting in New York City here, I can click on Connect to Node, and this gives me a web-based interface, very similar to the one I showed you before on the server here, but this runs in a GUI, but this one is web-based and gives you full information which users. You can see monitoring and can see the transfers coming in, and you can follow the transfers through here. You can add users, change the user's location. You can manage the system basically through Central. Same applies to if I connect, for example, the transfer agent, which is it's not an automated client. It's a client that can transfer specific files. I can connect to this specific transfer agent, and now I can browse the data on the left, which are my files residing on that specific system, and I can connect to any specific server on this side and fire up a transfer. So if I go here, for example, and I want to move some files, I can browse, select the data I want to move, and upload. And now you will actually see that this transfer agent now is moving files from the server. So I can do this. Now all of this can be done. Central has a complete REST API. So everything I show you here can be done programmatically via REST. So this becomes a very powerful tool when you need to move data on your corporate network from different locations. You can programmatically create tasks that move certain folders to certain places, and then you can manage it all through Central. The last piece is the administration of alarms. So the alarms can be either done through email. So if there's an error, you can send an email that happened, or you can do SNMP. So if you have any enterprise network management console or something like Splunk, that is managing your network. You can connect to it, and then you can raise alarms in those consoles, and it will show you the errors. You have well over 30 different errors you can capture, and as you're capturing them, you can notify the right person that something went wrong. So that's essentially central. As I mentioned, workflow, I'm going to skip right now. So to finish things off, what are the licensing options? So we have one option is the perpetual license. So you can buy a license. It's for life. You own it. There's an optional support and maintenance for 20%. It gives you access to our support. It gives you access to all the upgrades and all the versions. And then it's an annual support of 20%. And this is good for, you know, exactly how much money it's going to cost you. There's no data caps, no metering. Everything is you know exactly what the solution is going to cost and what it's going to do and the speeds. The support and maintenance for perpetual licensing is included for year one, and then optional. It's unmetered, as I mentioned, so there's no additional cost for moving data. Basically, you can move as much data as there's hours in a day. It's based on the specific bandwidth and concurrency needs you have. So how many concurrent transfers you need to do and the bandwidth, the pricing is based on that. And you have options on a la carte where you can buy every specific little feature, or you can buy an all-inclusive that gives you a package of pretty much all the functionality and concurrent connections that you need. The other option is consumption. This is for if you have specific project. Let's say you have to migrate data from site A to site B, and you know that there's 1 terabyte of data, and you're going to need that for a month to migrate the data. You can then go on a consumption based. There's no upfront cost. Basically, you get everything for free, and then you just pay you get a metered license, and the cost starts at 35 cents per gig and drops as you transfer more data. Like once you get to the terabyte, I think you're down to like 2 or 3 cents a gig. But you have a cost, and then this is connected to your credit card, and you pay as the transfer goes. But here, this is perfect for temporary project or when you know how much data you're going to be transferring, and there's no cost of entry. A cloud marketplace. So as I mentioned, we're integrated with a number of cloud vendors, AWS, Azure, Google, where you can fire up an instance of FileCatalyst, and then you just pay per hour. Per hour cost starts as little as $2 per hour and scales up based on the size of the instance. So the bigger the instance, the idea is that the bigger the instance, the faster you'll be able to send, and therefore the cost will be a bit higher. You have also the options to bring your own license, so you could actually license something based on a perpetual unmetered license and apply that license on the cloud and use that server on the cloud and not pay then the per hourly costs. But this is perfect for, again, data migration or projects where you, again, know you're going to be using it for a few days and then shut it down. The last option that we're launching soon will be FileCatalyst Spaces. That will give you the ability to, will provide you everything. Will provide you the infrastructure, the networking, the storage. It's a turnkey solution. You just pay a monthly fee, and you get, per additional user, you pay about $10. You pay $10 per user per month. You can add hot folder automation to it. You can add API integration, and then you pay, a penny per gig per month for storage, and you pay 6 cents per gig transferred. Of course, if you're connecting to your own existing on-premise perpetual license, then this fee is waived because you already own that license. So this is probably going to be coming out in December this year for as a software as a service, and it's going to be called FileCatalyst Spaces. So for those that are listening in and are not on the live webinar, I want to at this point say thank you. And thank you for listening, and stand by for our next webinars.